I'm leaving. You're on your own. A cruel stepmother told this little girl right as the school's parent-child presentation was about to begin. She abandoned her in the middle of the gym, leaving her humiliated with no partner. In desperation, the girl walked up to a tall man in a suit she had never seen before and asked for help. What that stepmother didn't know was she had just asked the city's most powerful billionaire to be her partner, and what he did next shocked everyone. But before we dive into the full story, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. Now, subscribe to the channel and let's get started. "Why are the stars so far away, Daddy?" Maya Johnson asked as she carefully glued the last blue-green planet onto her solar system model. "I want to touch them." David Johnson smiled at his 7-year-old daughter. Her small fingers worked with surprising precision as she completed the Neptune model she had spent 3 days painting. "The universe is very big, Stargirl," he said, using his special nickname for her. "But that's what makes it so amazing to study." Maya nodded seriously. She wore her favorite purple pajamas with tiny silver stars scattered across the fabric. Tomorrow was the big day, Lincoln Elementary School's annual Parent-Child Science Fair in Oakland, California. She had been working on her solar system model for weeks. "Is my project good enough to win?" Maya asked, her large brown eyes looking up at her father with uncertainty. "It's absolutely wonderful," David said. "You've worked so hard. I wish I could be there to see you present it." Maya's smile faded slightly. "You have to work at the hospital again?" "Double shift at Oakland General." David nodded, his face showing genuine regret. "But Karen will take you, just like she promised." At the mention of her stepmother, Maya's expression became carefully neutral. Karen Matthews Johnson had married her father 18 months ago. She had never shown much interest in Maya's school activities. "She said she'll be my partner for the presentation," Maya said quietly. "She promised." David kissed the top of Maya's head. "Time for bed now. You need sleep before your big day." The next morning, Maya woke up before her alarm clock. Sunlight streamed through her bedroom window as she jumped out of bed. She immediately checked her solar system model sitting on her desk. All 9 planets orbited perfectly around her hand-painted sun. David helped Maya get ready, making her favorite breakfast of strawberry pancakes while she brushed her teeth. "Your special dress is ironed and ready," David said, pointing to the purple dress with silver stars hanging on her closet door. "The one I gave you for your birthday." Maya's face lit up. "It matches my project." She carefully put on the dress, twirling once to make the stars shimmer in the morning light. David knelt down to her level. "I have to leave for work now, but I am so proud of you." He hugged her tightly. "Karen will be up soon to take you to school." After her father left, Maya waited. She sat at the kitchen table, her solar system model carefully packed in a large box beside her. 1 hour passed, then another. Maya heard movement upstairs and ran to the bottom of the staircase. "Karen, we need to go soon. The science fair starts at 9 o'clock. Karen appeared at the top of the stairs, still in her silk pajamas. "It's too early for all this noise, Maya." She yawned dramatically. "Why are you all dressed up?" "The science fair?" Maya reminded her. "You promised to be my partner. You promised Dad." Karen sighed loudly. "Fine, give me 30 minutes. 45 minutes later, they were in Karen's white sports car. Maya held her project carefully on her lap, making sure none of the planets fell off. "This is such a waste of a Saturday," Karen complained, checking her reflection in the rearview mirror. "I could be at brunch with Tiffany and Jessica." "Mrs. Patel says parent partnerships help kids learn better," Maya said quietly. Karen rolled her eyes. "Whatever." When they arrived at Lincoln Elementary School, the gymnasium was already filled with families setting up their displays. Long tables lined the room, each with a number and a student's name. "We're number 23, Maya said, reading the paper Mrs. Patel had given her. They found their table, and Maya carefully unpacked her solar system model. She arranged each planet in the correct order, making sure the orbits she had created with wire hangers were properly aligned. The principal, Miss Rodriguez, stepped up to a microphone at the front of the gymnasium. "Welcome to our annual Parent-Child Science Fair," she announced warmly. "This event celebrates the wonderful learning that happens when families work together. Presentations will begin in 1 hour, so please finish setting up your projects." Maya turned to Karen with excitement. "Do you want me to explain the planets to you? So you know what to say during our presentation?" Karen didn't look up from her phone. "You just talk about them. I'll stand there and look interested." "But it's supposed to be a partnership," Maya insisted. "Mrs. Patel said we both need to present something." "Fine," Karen sighed. "I'll hold up whatever you need me to hold." Mrs. Patel, Maya's science teacher, stopped by their table. She was a short woman with kind eyes and a bright smile. "What a beautiful solar system, Maya!" she exclaimed. "I love how you painted the cloud patterns on Jupiter." Maya beamed with pride. "I looked at real pictures from NASA to get them right." Mrs. Patel looked at Karen, who was still scrolling through her phone. "And you must be Maya's stepmother. It's wonderful to meet you. Maya talks about you often." Karen offered a brief smile without putting her phone down. "Nice to meet you too." "Your presentation time is 10:45, Mrs. Patel informed them. "The judges are especially interested in how parents and children work together on the projects." After Mrs. Patel left, Maya practiced her presentation quietly. She had memorized facts about each planet, from Mercury's extreme temperature changes to Neptune's powerful winds. Karen kept checking her phone and sighing dramatically. "How much longer is this going to take?" she asked for the third time. Maya looked at the large clock on the gymnasium wall. "Our presentation is in 20 minutes. Near the refreshment table across the room stood a tall man in an expensive gray suit. Maya noticed him because he was one of the few adults who wasn't helping a child set up a project. He stood quietly, occasionally writing in a small notebook. Maya didn't know he was Thomas Harrison, the billionaire founder of Harrison Technologies. Suddenly, Karen's phone chimed with a text message. She read it and jumped up from her chair with a smile. "I'm leaving," she announced, grabbing her purse. "You're on your own." Maya's heart started beating faster. "What? But we present in 15 minutes. I completely forgot I had a hair appointment," Karen said, already backing away from the table. "This is boring anyway." She glanced at her watch. "You know all that planet stuff. Just tell them what you told me." "Please don't go," Maya pleaded, her voice shaking. "I can't do it alone. I'm scared to talk in front of everyone." "You'll be fine," Karen said dismissively. "Tell your dad I tried, but something important came up." Before Maya could say another word, Karen turned and walked quickly toward the exit. Maya stood frozen beside her solar system model, feeling hot tears forming in her eyes. She tried to blink them away. Scientists didn't cry. The clock on the wall showed 10:35. In 10 minutes she would have to present her project. Alone. Maya looked around desperately. Other children were rehearsing with their parents. Nobody noticed her standing by herself, trying not to cry. Then her eyes landed again on the tall man in the gray suit by the refreshment table. He was watching her with a concerned expression. Something about his kind eyes made Maya take a deep breath and make a decision. Wiping her tears with the back of her hand, Maya straightened her purple star dress and walked across the gymnasium toward the stranger. Maya took a deep breath as she approached the tall man in the gray suit. Her small hands were still shaking, but she pushed forward, weaving between tables of science projects. With each step, she tried to remember what her father always told her. "Scientists solve problems, Star Girl." The man looked down, noticing her approach. His expression changed from casual observation to gentle concern when he saw her red eyes and trembling lower lip. "Hello," Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. "My name is Maya Johnson." The tall man knelt down to her level. "Hello, Maya. I'm Thomas." Maya wiped her eyes quickly with the back of her hand. "Mr. Thomas, I need help. My science fair presentation starts in 10 minutes and my stepmom just left. Would you—" Her voice cracked slightly. "Would you be my partner for the presentation? I just need someone to hold the planets while I explain them." Thomas Harrison blinked in surprise. In all his years of attending business meetings and technology conferences, no one had ever caught him so completely off guard. He looked around the gymnasium, expecting to see another adult coming to claim this abandoned child. "Your stepmother left?" Thomas asked, his voice gentle but serious. Maya nodded, looking down at her purple star shoes. She said she had a hair appointment. She said this was boring. Thomas felt an unexpected wave of anger toward this unknown woman who had left a child alone at such an important moment. He checked his watch, a meeting with potential investors scheduled in 2 hours. Then he looked at Maya's hopeful face. "I would be honored to help you," Thomas said with a genuine smile, "but I don't know anything about your project." Relief washed over Maya's face. "That's okay. I can teach you all about the planets. I made them all myself." Thomas stood up and offered his hand to Maya. "Then lead the way, Maya Johnson. We have a presentation to prepare for." They walked back to table number 23, where Maya's solar system model stood complete with 9 carefully painted planets orbiting a bright yellow sun. Thomas noticed the incredible detail on each planet. Someone had clearly spent many hours on this project. "This is amazing work," Thomas said, genuinely impressed. "Did you make all of this?" Maya nodded proudly. "My dad helped me bend the wires for the orbits, but I painted all the planets. I used real NASA pictures to get Jupiter's clouds right." "We have about 9 minutes before your presentation. What do you need me to do?" Thomas asked, setting his notebook aside. Maya pulled out index cards with neat handwriting. "I memorized facts about all the planets. You just need to hold each one up when I talk about it." She bit her lip. "But I get nervous talking about gravitational pull. It's complicated." Thomas smiled. "I studied astrophysics at MIT. Maybe I can help explain that part." Maya's eyes widened. "You know about space too?" "I do. But today, you're the expert. I'm just your assistant." They quickly developed a plan. Maya would introduce each planet while Thomas held it up. For the section on gravitational pull, Thomas would help explain using simple words. Across the gymnasium, parents began to notice the unusual pair. A small girl in a purple dress rehearsing with a man in an expensive business suit who clearly wasn't her father. Whispers started to spread. "Who is that man with Maya Johnson? Where's her stepmother? Should someone call the principal?" Mrs. Patel noticed the situation and walked quickly to table 23. Her face showed concern as she approached. "Maya," Mrs. Patel said carefully, "is everything okay? Where is your stepmother?" "She had to leave," Maya answered, not meeting her teacher's eyes. "But Mr. Thomas is helping me now. He knows about astrophysics." Mrs. Patel looked at Thomas with uncertainty. "I'm sorry, sir, but are you a family member?" Thomas extended his hand. "Thomas Harrison. I'm not family, no. Maya's stepmother left unexpectedly, and Maya asked if I could help with her presentation." Mrs. Patel's eyes showed both concern and appreciation. "That's very kind of you, Mr. Harrison. But I should mention that we typically expect family members for this event." "She left me alone," Maya said suddenly, her voice stronger than before. "Karen just walked away and said I should do it by myself. But I was scared." She looked up at Thomas. "Then I saw Mr. Thomas standing alone and I thought maybe he could help me." Mrs. Patel's expression softened immediately. "I see." She looked at Thomas with new understanding. "Thank you for stepping in, Mr. Harrison. Maya has worked very hard on this project." As Mrs. Patel walked away, Thomas noticed a man at the next table watching them closely. The man whispered something to another parent, who looked over with obvious disapproval. Some people are watching us, Maya said quietly, noticing the stares. That's okay, Thomas assured her. We're doing nothing wrong. You needed help, and I'm happy to provide it. Let's focus on your planets. Maya nodded and pointed to her model. Let's practice once more. This is Mercury, the smallest planet. While Maya rehearsed, Thomas observed the man who had been watching them move between different parent groups. The man gestured toward their table, speaking in a low voice that carried just enough for Thomas to catch phrases like unfair advantage and breaking the rules. The clock on the wall showed 10:43, just 2 minutes until their presentation. Are you ready? Thomas asked. Maya took a deep breath and stood very straight. I think so. But what if they ask hard questions? Then we'll answer them together, Thomas said. And if you get stuck, just look at me. I'll help you. The announcement came over the speaker system. Table 23, Maya Johnson, please bring your solar system project to the presentation area. Maya froze, her eyes wide with sudden fear. Thomas knelt down to her eye level again. Maya, do you know what astronomers do? He asked softly. She shook her head. They explore the unknown. They look at things that seem scary or too far away, and they learn about them. That makes them some of the bravest scientists in the world. Maya's expression changed as she considered this. Like the people who sent rovers to Mars? Exactly like them, Thomas nodded. They were probably nervous too, but they did it anyway. Just like you're going to do now. Maya took another deep breath and picked up her solar system model carefully. Thomas gathered her index cards and followed behind her. As they walked to the front of the gymnasium, Maya surprised Thomas by reaching for his hand with her free one. The simple gesture of trust caught Thomas off guard. For someone who spent his days surrounded by technology and business proposals, this human connection felt unfamiliar, yet somehow important. He gently held her small hand as they walked forward together. At the presentation area, 3 judges sat at a table with clipboards. Other students and parents filled the seats, watching with interest. Thomas noticed the man who had been whispering was now sitting near the front, leaning toward one of the judges. You can do this, Maya, Thomas said quietly as they set up her model on the display table. Just like we practiced. Maya nodded and stepped forward, facing the audience with her chin up. She looked once more at Thomas, who gave her an encouraging smile. In that moment, neither Maya nor Thomas realized that their unlikely partnership was about to face its first major challenge, and that the whispers spreading through the room would soon force them both to stand up for something much bigger than a science fair presentation. Maya stepped to the front of the gymnasium, her hand still holding Thomas's for support. The judges watched them with curious expressions as they set up her solar system model on the presentation table. Maya could feel many eyes on her, but she tried to focus on her planets. We have 10 minutes to prepare before we actually start, Thomas whispered, noticing the timer on the judges' table. Let's make sure we're ready. Maya nodded and pulled her note cards from her dress pocket. I wrote everything down about the inner planets, she said, showing Thomas her carefully printed notes. Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars. I know all those parts. Thomas studied her notes. Your handwriting is very neat. Thank you, but… Maya's voice dropped lower. I get nervous about the outer planets, especially when I talk about gravity. It's hard to explain why planets stay in orbit. Thomas thought for a moment. He noticed a fruit bowl on the refreshment table nearby. May I borrow that for a moment? He asked a parent volunteer. The woman nodded, and Thomas took an orange and a grapefruit from the bowl. Maya, what if we use these to show how gravity works? Thomas placed the larger grapefruit on the table. This can be the sun. It's big and has strong gravity. Maya's eyes widened with understanding. And the orange can be Earth? Exactly. We can show how the orange, Earth, moves around the sun because of gravity. Thomas demonstrated how the orange would move around the grapefruit in a circle. explaining in simple words how gravity keeps planets in their orbits. Maya watched carefully, then tried it herself. "The sun pulls on the planets," Maya said, moving the orange in a circle around the grapefruit. "That's why they don't fly away into space. They're always falling toward the sun, but they're also moving forward, so they go around and around instead." Thomas smiled. "That's perfectly explained. You'll do great." While they practiced, Mrs. Patel walked over to the judge's table. She spoke quietly to Dr. Simmons, the head judge, occasionally glancing toward Maya and Thomas. "Who is that man helping Maya Johnson?" Dr. Simmons asked, looking over her glasses. "His name is Thomas Harrison," Mrs. Patel explained. "Maya's stepmother apparently left her alone and she asked him to help with her presentation." "That's highly unusual," Dr. Simmons replied, making a note on her clipboard. Across the room, Brian Wilson moved between groups of parents. He was a tall man with a stern face and expensive clothes. His son had created a volcano project that erupted with real smoke. "It doesn't seem fair," Brian was saying to another parent. "The rules say this is a parent-child science fair. That man isn't her parent. Who knows what kind of help he's giving her?" Some parents nodded in agreement. Others looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Maya noticed the whispering and tugged on Thomas's sleeve. "People are talking about us," she said, her voice shaking slightly. "Don't worry about them," Thomas said gently. "Focus on your planets. You know your project better than anyone else here." At the back of the gymnasium, the door opened quietly. Karen Matthews Johnson slipped inside, staying near the exit. She had received several angry text messages from David, Maya's father. Karen stood with her arms crossed, watching Maya and Thomas with a mixture of confusion and annoyance. "5 minutes until the next presentation," announced Ms. Rodriguez over the microphone. "Maya Johnson, are you and your partner ready?" Maya looked at Thomas with wide eyes. "What if I forget everything?" "Then I'll be right here to help," Thomas assured her. "Let's practice one more time with the fruit." Maya moved the orange around the grapefruit again. "The sun's gravity pulls on Earth, keeping it in orbit. The same thing happens with all the planets, but the ones farther away feel less gravity because they're so far from the sun." "Perfect," Thomas nodded. "You explain it better than many of my colleagues who studied space for years." Maya smiled at the compliment. Her nervousness wasn't gone, but it felt smaller now. "Maybe we should practice how we'll stand," Thomas suggested. "I can hold up each planet while you talk about it." They arranged themselves beside the presentation table, with Thomas standing slightly behind Maya, ready to hold each planet model when needed. As they practiced their positions, Brian Wilson approached the judges again, speaking just loudly enough for Thomas to hear. "I'm concerned about the fairness of this competition," Brian was saying. "My son and I spent weeks on our project, following the rules about parent partnerships. That man helping Maya Johnson isn't her parent. It's against the spirit of the event." Dr. Simmons nodded thoughtfully. "We'll take your concerns into consideration, Mr. Wilson." Maya hadn't heard what Brian said, but she noticed the judges looking at them with serious expressions. "Are they mad at us?" she asked Thomas. "They're just doing their job," Thomas replied. "Remember, we're not breaking any rules. You needed help, and I'm happy to be here." Ms. Rodriguez approached their table. "Maya, is your presentation ready? You'll be starting in 2 minutes." Maya nodded, standing very straight like she did when she was nervous. "Yes, we're ready." As Ms. Rodriguez walked away, Thomas noticed Maya's hands were shaking. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. "What if they don't let me present because Karen left?" Maya whispered, her voice barely audible. "I worked so hard on my planets." Thomas felt a surge of protectiveness for this child he had met less than 30 minutes ago. "I promise they'll let you present. And if anyone has questions about why I'm helping you, I'll answer them." "Time for the next presentation," Ms. Rodriguez announced. "Maya Johnson with her solar system project." Maya took a deep breath and picked up her model sun. Thomas gathered the planet models carefully in his hands. As they prepared to walk to the center of the presentation area, Maya looked up at Thomas with uncertainty in her eyes. "Ready?" Thomas asked. Maya nodded, but her expression showed she wasn't entirely convinced. "Astronomers are brave explorers, remember?" Thomas reminded her gently. A small smile appeared on Maya's face. "Brave explorers," she repeated. "Okay, I'm ready." They walked toward the center of the gymnasium. The audience of parents and children watched with interest. The three judges sat with clipboards ready. Brian Wilson leaned forward in his chair, his eyes narrowed. As they reached the presentation area, Maya surprised Thomas by suddenly reaching for his hand again. The simple gesture touched him deeply. In his world of business meetings and technology innovation, human connection was rare. Yet this child had reached out to him, first for help and now for courage. Thomas gave her hand a gentle squeeze as they reached the center of the presentation area. The first judge smiled encouragingly at Maya. The second judge looked curiously at Thomas. The third judge, Dr. Simmons, had a neutral expression as she wrote something on her clipboard. Maya and Thomas arranged their materials on the presentation table. The solar system model stood in the center, with the sun glowing bright yellow under the gymnasium lights. The fruit demonstration was ready on one side. Maya's note cards were stacked neatly beside the model. "Whenever you're ready, Maya," said Dr. Simmons. Maya looked once more at Thomas, who nodded encouragingly. She took a final deep breath and stepped forward to begin her presentation, unaware that the questions about her unusual partnership with Thomas were about to become the center of attention for everyone in the gymnasium. "Hello, everyone," Maya began, her voice quiet but clear. "My name is Maya Johnson. Today I will tell you about our solar system." The gymnasium fell silent as people focused on the small girl in the purple star dress. Thomas stood beside her, holding up the model's sun as Maya had instructed him. "Our solar system begins with the sun," Maya continued, pointing to the bright yellow sphere Thomas held. "The sun is a star. It gives us light and heat." As Maya spoke, her voice grew stronger. Thomas watched with quiet admiration as she transformed from a nervous child into a confident young scientist. "Mercury is the closest planet to the sun," Maya said, reaching for the small gray planet model. Thomas handed it to her smoothly. "It is very hot during the day and very cold at night." Maya continued through the inner planets, explaining facts about each one. When she reached Earth, she held up the blue and green model with special care. "Earth is our home. It has water and air that help us live. It takes 365 days to go around the sun once. We call that 1 year." Thomas noticed the judges writing notes. Dr. Simmons looked impressed by Maya's knowledge. The audience of parents and children watched with interest. "Now we come to the outer planets," Maya said. She glanced quickly at Thomas, who gave her an encouraging nod. "Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system." Thomas held up the striped orange and white planet model. Maya explained the details of Jupiter's surface that she had carefully painted. When Maya reached the part about gravitational pull, she paused for a moment. Thomas gently placed the grapefruit and orange on the table. "Gravity is what keeps planets orbiting around the sun," Maya explained. "Mr. Thomas will help me show how this works." Thomas stepped forward. "Thank you, Maya. Imagine this grapefruit is the sun." He placed the large fruit in the center of the table. "And this orange is Earth." Thomas moved the orange in a circle around the grapefruit. "The sun's gravity pulls on all the planets, keeping them in their orbits. Without gravity, the planets would fly away into space." Several children in the audience leaned forward, clearly understanding this simple demonstration better than Maya's earlier explanation. Maya smiled with relief and continued her presentation. "Neptune is the farthest major planet from the Sun. It takes 165 Earth years to orbit the Sun once." As Maya finished describing the last planet, the audience began to applaud. Thomas felt a surge of pride for this brave girl who had overcome her stepmother's abandonment and her own fears to deliver an excellent presentation. "Thank you for listening," Maya said with a small bow. "Are there any questions?" A boy in the front row raised his hand. "Why is Pluto not in your model?" Maya smiled. "Great question. Pluto is now called a dwarf planet. I did make a model of Pluto too." She reached into her project box and pulled out a tiny gray sphere. "It's very small compared to the other planets." The children seemed satisfied with this answer. Dr. Simmons wrote something on her clipboard and nodded approvingly. Then Brian Wilson raised his hand. Thomas had been watching the man throughout the presentation, noting his frowning expression. "I have a question," Brian said loudly, standing up from his chair. "Isn't it against the rules to have a non-family member participate? Who is this man anyway?" The room fell silent. All eyes turned toward Maya and Thomas. Maya froze, her small hand tightening around Neptune. Dr. Simmons looked uncomfortable but addressed the question. "Mr. Wilson raises an interesting point." She turned to Thomas. "Sir, could you explain your relationship to Maya?" Before Thomas could answer, Mrs. Patel stepped forward. "If I may, Dr. Simmons, the guidelines for our science fair encourage family partnerships, but there is no specific rule prohibiting other adult assistance." Brian Wilson shook his head. "That doesn't seem fair to the rest of us who followed the parent-child format. My son and I spent weeks working together on our volcano, as the event intended." Other parents began whispering. Some nodded in agreement with Brian, while others looked concerned for Maya. "The purpose of our science fair is educational," Mrs. Patel continued. "Maya has clearly demonstrated knowledge of her subject." Maya stood very still, looking down at her planet models. Thomas could see her shoulders beginning to shake slightly. Ms. Rodriguez approached the microphone. "Perhaps we should hear from Maya and her partner about how this arrangement came about." All attention turned to Maya, who looked up with tears forming in her eyes. Thomas placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Would you like me to explain?" Thomas asked her quietly. Maya nodded, relief crossing her face. Thomas stepped forward to address the room. He could see Karen at the back of the gymnasium, trying to blend into the wall. She looked uncomfortable as all eyes turned toward the front. "I believe I can clear up this situation," Thomas began. "My name is Thomas Harrison." The name caused no immediate reaction. Thomas wasn't surprised. Despite his company's success, he rarely sought public attention and wouldn't be recognized by most people outside the technology industry. "I came to this science fair today as an observer. I have no connection to Lincoln Elementary or to Maya." Thomas paused, choosing his next words carefully. "About 30 minutes ago, I witnessed something that concerned me greatly." The room remained silent, everyone focused on his words. "I watched as Maya's stepmother told her she was leaving, minutes before this presentation. She left a 7-year-old child alone and in tears because she had a hair appointment." Gasps and murmurs spread through the gymnasium. Several parents turned to look at the back wall where Karen stood, her face now flushed with embarrassment. "Maya approached me, a complete stranger, and asked for help," Thomas continued. "She showed remarkable courage in that moment. Rather than give up on her project, she found a solution." Maya looked up at Thomas with grateful eyes. "I agreed to help because no child should have to abandon weeks of hard work due to an adult's irresponsibility." Thomas's voice remained calm, but the intensity behind his words was clear. "If there's a rule against what we've done today, perhaps the rule needs examination." Dr. Simmons removed her glasses, looking thoughtful. "Thank you for your explanation, Mr. Harrison." She turned to her fellow judges, and they spoke quietly among themselves. Brian Wilson remained standing, but his expression had changed from righteous indignation to discomfort. He sat down slowly as other parents gave him disapproving looks. After a brief conference, Dr. Simmons spoke again. We see no reason to penalize Maya for showing resourcefulness in a difficult situation. The presentation will be judged on its scientific merit." Relief washed over Maya's face. Thomas gave her shoulder a gentle squeeze. "However," Dr. Simmons continued, looking directly at Thomas, "we would like to know more about who you are, Mr. Harrison. You mentioned you came as an observer. May I ask why?" The question hung in the air. Thomas realized this moment required complete honesty, not just about his identity but about his purpose for being at Lincoln Elementary. His answer would change the course of the day for everyone in the room, especially for Maya. Thomas straightened his tie and looked directly at Dr. Simmons. The entire gymnasium waited for his answer. Maya stood beside him, confused by the sudden attention on her science fair partner. "My name is Thomas Harrison," he repeated calmly. "I'm the founder and CEO of Harrison Technologies." A wave of whispers spread through the gymnasium. Several adults gasped as they recognized the name. One man dropped his coffee cup, spilling liquid across the floor. "Harrison Technologies?" Mrs. Patel said, her eyes widening. "The renewable energy company?" "Yes," Thomas nodded. "Our main office is here in Oakland." Maya looked up at Thomas with confusion. She didn't understand why everyone was suddenly so interested in her new friend. "I came to Lincoln Elementary today because my company's educational foundation is looking for schools to support with new science programs," Thomas continued. "We want to help young students become interested in science and technology. Your principal invited me to observe your science fair." Ms. Rodriguez stepped forward, nodding. "That's correct. Mr. Harrison's foundation donated computers to 3 schools in Oakland last year. When I heard they were looking to expand their educational programs, I invited him to see our science fair." Dr. Simmons looked impressed. "I see. Thank you for clarifying that, Mr. Harrison." At the back of the gymnasium, Karen had begun inching toward the exit door. She looked uncomfortable as several parents turned to stare at her. The woman who had abandoned her stepdaughter now realized she had done so in front of one of the richest men in California. Thomas wasn't finished speaking, but my original purpose for being here changed completely when I witnessed what happened to Maya. His voice remained calm, but his words carried throughout the silent room. "I watched as her stepmother told her she was leaving for a hair appointment, calling this event boring. I watched a 7-year-old child try not to cry as she was abandoned minutes before her presentation. All eyes turned toward the back of the room. Karen froze near the exit, her face turning red. What happened next impressed me more than any business presentation I've seen in my career," Thomas continued. Rather than giving up, Maya looked for a solution. She approached me, a complete stranger, and asked for help. The courage that required was extraordinary. Maya looked down at her shoes, both embarrassed and proud at Thomas's words. "As for the question of rules," Thomas addressed the judges directly, "I understand the importance of fairness in competitions. But I believe the most important rule should be that we don't let children down. If Maya broke a rule by finding help when an adult abandoned her, then perhaps we should reconsider what we're teaching our children." The gymnasium remained completely silent. Even Brian Wilson looked ashamed now. Dr. Simmons removed her glasses and stood up. "Mr. Harrison makes an excellent point." She looked around the room. "The purpose of our science fair has always been to encourage learning and collaboration. Maya has demonstrated not only scientific knowledge but also remarkable problem-solving skills and determination." She turned to her fellow judges, who nodded in agreement. "Maya and Mr. Harrison's presentation will stand on its merits." A small applause started, growing stronger as more parents and children joined in. Maya's face brightened with relief and happiness. "Thank you, Dr. Simmons," Maya said. Her voice was small but clear. "Now," Dr. Simmons said, smiling at Maya, "do you want to complete your presentation? I believe you were about to take questions." Maya nodded eagerly and stepped forward again. "Does anyone have questions about the planets?" Several hands shot up, most belonging to children who now viewed Maya with new interest and respect. She answered questions about Mars, Jupiter, and why Saturn has rings, demonstrating impressive knowledge for her age. Thomas stood nearby, handing her planet models when needed, but letting Maya take the spotlight. He noticed that she stood taller now, her earlier nervousness replaced by confidence. When the presentation concluded, Maya and Thomas returned to their table amid congratulations from nearby parents and children. Karen had disappeared completely from the gymnasium. "Did I do okay?" Maya asked Thomas as they carefully packed her planet models. "You did better than okay," Thomas assured her. "You were excellent." Mrs. Patel approached their table with a warm smile. "Maya, that was a wonderful presentation. The judges were very impressed with your knowledge of astronomy." "Thank you, Mrs. Patel," Maya beamed. Mrs. Patel turned to Thomas. "And Mr. Harrison, thank you for stepping in today. I've contacted Maya's father. He's trying to leave his hospital shift early to come here." Thomas nodded. "I'll stay with Maya until he arrives." After Mrs. Patel left, Thomas helped Maya arrange her solar system back in its box. He noticed her looking at him with curious eyes. "Why did everyone get so excited when you said your name?" she asked. Thomas smiled. "I started a company that makes batteries and solar panels. It grew bigger than I expected." "Is that why you know so much about science?" "Yes. I studied engineering and physics in college. I've always been interested in how things work." Maya nodded seriously. "Me too. I want to work for NASA someday and study black holes." "That's an excellent goal," Thomas said. "Black holes are fascinating." As they continued talking, Thomas found himself enjoying Maya's company more than he had anticipated. Her questions were thoughtful and her enthusiasm for science was genuine. It had been a long time since Thomas had a conversation that wasn't about business strategies or profit margins. Across the gymnasium, the judges were making notes and discussing the presentations. Other children and parents walked around looking at different projects. Thomas noticed several adults pointing in their direction and whispering, clearly discussing the billionaire CEO who had unexpectedly partnered with an abandoned child. "Mr. Harrison," Maya said suddenly, interrupting his thoughts, "will you stay for the awards ceremony?" It's after lunch. Thomas checked his watch. His meeting with investors had started 15 minutes ago. His assistant had sent several text messages asking where he was. "I think I can rearrange my schedule," he said, making a decision. "I'd like to see how your project does in the judging." Maya's face lit up. "Thank you. I hope we get a ribbon. Even a yellow one would be okay." Thomas felt his phone vibrate again. He sent a quick message to his assistant. "Cancel all appointments for today." Something more important came up. Ms. Rodriguez approached the microphone. "Everyone, please enjoy the refreshments while the judges complete their evaluations. The awards ceremony will begin at 12:30. Children and parents moved toward the refreshment table. Thomas and Maya remained at their table, continuing their conversation about space. "Did you know there's a giant storm on Jupiter called the Great Red Spot?" Maya asked. "It's been there for hundreds of years." "I did know that," Thomas replied. "It's a storm bigger than Earth." "I painted it on my Jupiter model," Maya said proudly, pointing to the red swirl on her planet. As they talked, Thomas realized he was witnessing something rare. Pure enthusiasm for knowledge, untainted by concerns about profit or practicality. It reminded him of why he had started his company in the first place, not to become wealthy, but to create technology that could help solve important problems. "Maya," Thomas said, "would you like to get some juice and cookies? You must be hungry after your presentation." "Yes, please," Maya nodded. As they walked toward the refreshment table, Maya surprised Thomas by slipping her small hand into his again. The simple gesture of trust affected him deeply. At the refreshment table, several parents approached Thomas, introducing themselves and asking about Harrison Technologies. Thomas answered politely but kept his focus on Maya, making sure she got the cookies and juice she wanted. "Mr. Harrison," Maya said as they found a quiet spot to sit, "thank you for helping me today." I was really scared when Karen left." "You're very welcome, Maya," Thomas replied. "Thank you for being brave enough to ask for help." That's something many adults find difficult to do. Maya considered this as she sipped her apple juice. "My dad says it's okay to ask for help when you need it. He says that's how people learn and grow." "Your dad sounds like a wise man," Thomas said. "I'd like to meet him." "He works at Oakland General Hospital," Maya explained. "He helps sick people get better. Today he has to work a double shift." Thomas was impressed by what he was learning about Maya's family. A single father working long hours at a hospital, raising a scientifically minded daughter while married to a woman who clearly had little interest in parenting. As they finished their snacks, Miss Rodriguez approached them. "Mr. Harrison, could I speak with you privately for a moment?" "Of course," Thomas nodded. He turned to Maya. "I'll be right back." "Promise?" Maya asked, her eyes suddenly concerned. "I promise," Thomas said firmly. "I won't leave until your father arrives." Maya seemed satisfied with this answer and turned her attention to fixing one of Neptune's rings that had bent during the presentation. Thomas followed Ms. Rodriguez to a quiet corner of the gymnasium, unaware that their conversation would lead to a decision that would change Maya's life forever. Ms. Rodriguez led Thomas to a quiet corner of the gymnasium. Her expression was a mixture of concern and gratitude. "Mr. Harrison," she began, "I wanted to personally thank you for stepping in today." What happened with Maya's stepmother was unacceptable. Thomas nodded. "Maya is a remarkable child. I'm happy I could help. That's actually what I wanted to discuss," Ms. Rodriguez continued. "We've contacted Maya's father, David Johnson. He's trying to leave his hospital shift early, but it may be another hour before he arrives. Would you be willing to stay with Maya until then?" "Of course," Thomas replied without hesitation. "I've already cleared my schedule for the day." Ms. Rodriguez looked relieved. "Thank you. The awards ceremony will be at 12:30, after the judges review all the projects one more time." She paused, then added, "Lincoln Elementary would be honored if you'd consider being more involved with our science program in the future. Children like Maya have so much potential but limited resources." "I'd be very interested in discussing that," Thomas said. "Perhaps we could arrange a meeting next week?" They exchanged contact information before Thomas returned to Maya, who was still carefully adjusting Neptune's rings. "Is Neptune giving you trouble?" Thomas asked, sitting down beside her. Maya looked up with a serious expression. "The wire bent during our presentation. Neptune's rings need to be perfect." Thomas watched as her small fingers worked with impressive precision. "You pay close attention to details. That's an important skill for scientists." "My dad says the same thing," Maya replied. "He says good doctors and good scientists both need to notice everything." As they talked, Thomas's phone vibrated again. He glanced at the screen to see 6 missed calls from Rachel, his assistant, and 4 from Vanessa Chen, his company's COO. Maya noticed his phone. "Are those people trying to call you?" "You can answer if you want." "It's just work," Thomas said, silencing his phone. "It can wait." He sent a quick text to Rachel. "Still at elementary school science fair. Contact everyone on my calendar. Reschedule all meetings for tomorrow." Almost immediately, Rachel replied, "The investors from Tokyo are very unhappy. They flew in specifically to meet with you." Thomas typed, "Offer them dinner tonight at Maple Reserve. I'll join them at 7 o'clock. "What do you do at your company?" Maya asked, curious about Thomas's work. "We make special batteries that store energy from the sun," Thomas explained. "They help people use clean energy even when the sun isn't shining." Maya's eyes widened. "So you help save the planet from pollution?" Thomas smiled at her straightforward conclusion. "That's exactly what we try to do." Around them, the gymnasium continued to buzz with activity. More students gave their presentations while judges moved from table to table, making notes on clipboards. Thomas and Maya sat together, watching the remaining presentations. When a 5th-grade boy presented his project about magnetism, Thomas noticed Maya looking confused when the boy mentioned electromagnetic fields. "What are electromagnetic fields?" Maya whispered to Thomas. Thomas explained in simple terms how magnets create invisible forces that can move metal objects without touching them. "That's like the invisible gravity that holds planets in orbit," Maya said, connecting the concept to her own project. "Exactly right," Thomas nodded, impressed by her understanding. As they watched more presentations, Thomas found himself enjoying the simple pleasure of explaining scientific concepts to Maya. Her questions were thoughtful, and her excitement about learning was refreshing. Mrs. Patel approached their table with updates about Maya's father. "Mr. Johnson says he'll be here as soon as possible. They had an emergency at the hospital." "That's okay," Maya said. "Mr. Thomas is staying with me until Dad comes." Mrs. Patel smiled gratefully at Thomas. "The judges will be coming around for final evaluations soon. They may ask Maya additional questions about her project." After Mrs. Patel left, Maya looked worried. "What if they ask hard questions I can't answer?" "Remember how well you explained gravitational pull?" Thomas reassured her. "You know your project better than anyone. And if you're not sure about something, it's okay to say you don't know." "Really?" Maya looked surprised. "I thought scientists have to know everything." "Not at all," Thomas shook his head. "Good scientists say, 'I don't know all the time.' That's how we learn new things." This seemed to comfort Maya. She stood up straighter and began reorganizing her display, placing her planet models in perfect order from Mercury to Neptune. To Thomas's surprise, Brian Wilson approached their table. The man who had questioned their partnership earlier now looked uncomfortable. His son stood beside him, looking at Maya's planet models with interest. "Mr. Harrison," Brian said, extending his hand, "I wanted to apologize for my behavior earlier. I didn't understand the situation." Thomas shook his hand firmly. "Apology accepted, Mr. Wilson." Brian turned to Maya. "I'm sorry if I upset you, young lady. Your solar system model is very impressive." "Thank you," Maya said quietly. "Your son's volcano was cool too." The two children began talking about their projects, the earlier tension forgotten. Thomas watched the interaction with satisfaction, glad to see Maya engaging with her peers. As Brian and his son walked away, Thomas noticed Maya's posture had relaxed. The small gesture of reconciliation had clearly meant a lot to her. "That was nice of him to say sorry," Maya remarked. "Yes, it was," Thomas agreed. "It takes courage to admit when you're wrong." The judges began their final round, moving from table to table with clipboards. Dr. Simmons approached Maya's table with a friendly smile. "I'd like to ask you a few more questions about your project, Maya," she said. Maya stood up straight. "I'm ready." "I notice you painted cloud patterns on Jupiter. Can you tell me about those?" "Jupiter has bands of clouds made of different gases," Maya explained confidently. "The Great Red Spot is actually a giant storm that has been happening for hundreds of years." Dr. Simmons nodded approvingly and asked several more questions. Maya answered each one, occasionally glancing at Thomas, who stood nearby offering silent support. When Dr. Simmons finished, she made a few notes on her clipboard. "Thank you, Maya. Your knowledge of astronomy is impressive." After the judge left, Maya turned to Thomas with an excited expression. "I think that went well." "It went excellently," Thomas confirmed. "You answered every question perfectly." Maya beamed with pride. "Do you think we might win a ribbon?" "I think your project deserves recognition," Thomas said carefully. "But remember, winning isn't the most important part." "I know," Maya nodded seriously. "Learning about science and solving problems is more important. That's what my dad always says." Thomas checked his watch. It was almost 12:15. The awards ceremony would begin soon. "Are you nervous about the ceremony?" Thomas asked. Maya thought for a moment. "A little, but not as much as I was about the presentation." "That makes sense," Thomas said. "The hard part is already done." As they waited, Thomas noticed Maya's attention drifting toward the gymnasium doors. She was clearly hoping to see her father walk through them. "I'm sure he'll be here soon," Thomas reassured her. "Hospital emergencies are unpredictable." "I know," Maya sighed. "Sometimes he has to stay late to help people. He saves lives." Thomas was continually impressed by Maya's maturity and understanding. Despite being let down by her stepmother today, she showed remarkable resilience. Ms. Rodriguez approached the microphone. "Everyone, please take your seats. The awards ceremony will begin in 5 minutes." Maya and Thomas found seats in the front row. Maya carefully smoothed her purple star dress and checked that her hair was still in place. "No matter what happens with the awards," Thomas said quietly, "I want you to know that I'm very proud of how you handled today." Maya looked up at him with a smile. "I'm glad Karen left." Thomas was startled by this statement. "You are?" Maya nodded. "If she didn't leave, I wouldn't have met you. And you're a much better science partner." The simple honesty of her statement touched Thomas deeply. In the business world, people constantly approached him with hidden agendas and ulterior motives. Maya's straightforward appreciation was refreshing. As the gymnasium lights dimmed slightly for the presentation of awards, Thomas realized something unexpected. This impromptu mentorship had become meaningful to him. Helping Maya had reminded him why he became interested in science in the first place: the pure joy of discovery and understanding. The doors at the back of the gymnasium opened, and a man in hospital scrubs hurried in, scanning the crowd with worried eyes. Maya didn't notice him at first. Her attention focused on Ms. Rodriguez at the podium. Thomas recognized David Johnson immediately from Maya's descriptions. He stood up slightly and caught David's eye, gesturing to the empty seat beside Maya. Maya turned to see what Thomas was looking at. "Dad!" she exclaimed, her face lighting up with happiness. As David Johnson rushed toward them, Thomas prepared to meet the father of the remarkable child who had unexpectedly changed the course of his day, and perhaps much more. "Dad!" Maya jumped up from her seat and ran toward David Johnson. He knelt down and embraced his daughter tightly, still wearing his light blue hospital scrubs under a hastily thrown-on jacket. "I'm so sorry I couldn't get here sooner, Star Girl," David said, checking Maya's face. "There was an emergency surgery." "Are you okay?" "Mrs. Patel called me about what happened with Karen." Maya nodded. "I'm okay. Mr. Thomas helped me with my presentation." David looked up to see Thomas Harrison standing nearby, waiting politely as father and daughter reunited. Thomas extended his hand. "Thomas Harrison, it's good to meet you, Dr. Johnson." David stood and shook Thomas's hand firmly. "David, please. And I'm not a doctor yet, still finishing my residency." His expression turned serious. "Mrs. Patel told me Karen left Maya alone. I can't thank you enough for stepping in." "Your daughter approached me," Thomas explained. "She showed remarkable courage." Ms. Rodriguez's voice came through the speakers. "Everyone, please take your seats. The awards ceremony is about to begin." "We saved you a seat, Dad," Maya said, pulling her father toward the front row. The three of them sat together, Maya in the middle between her father and Thomas. David leaned over to whisper to Thomas, "I still don't understand exactly what happened. Mrs. Patel's call was brief." "I can explain everything after the ceremony," Thomas promised. Maya sat very straight in her chair, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Thomas noticed she was pressing her thumbs together, a nervous habit he'd observed earlier. "Are you excited about the awards?" David asked his daughter. "Yes," Maya nodded. "But Mr. Thomas says winning isn't the most important part." David looked at Thomas with increased appreciation. "That's exactly right." Ms. Rodriguez stood at the podium and welcomed everyone to the awards ceremony. "Today we saw wonderful scientific exploration from all our students. Every participant should feel proud of their work." Maya listened intently, occasionally glancing at the judges' table where the ribbons were displayed: blue for first place, red for second, yellow for third. "Before we announce the winners," Ms. Rodriguez continued, "we have a special guest I'd like to introduce, Many of you may already know this from earlier events, but we're honored to have Thomas Harrison with us today, founder and CEO of Harrison Technologies. A murmur went through the audience. David looked at Thomas with surprise. Harrison Technologies? The renewable energy company? Thomas nodded modestly. Mr. Harrison has been kind enough to assist one of our students today under unusual circumstances, Ms. Rodriguez explained. And I'm pleased to announce that Harrison Technologies has expressed interest in supporting Lincoln Elementary's science program in the future. Applause filled the gymnasium. Thomas smiled politely but kept his attention on Maya, who seemed more interested in the ribbons than in his sudden recognition. And now, Ms. Rodriguez said, the moment you've all been waiting for. We'll begin with honorable mentions. 5 students were called forward to receive white ribbons for honorable mentions. Maya applauded each one, though Thomas could tell she was growing more anxious as the higher awards approached. For 3rd place, Ms. Rodriguez announced, the yellow ribbon goes to Emma Taylor for her project on plant photosynthesis. A girl with braided hair walked to the podium beaming as she accepted her yellow ribbon. 2nd place, with the red ribbon, goes to Jason Wilson for his volcano demonstration. Brian Wilson's son hurried to the front. As he passed Maya, he gave her a thumbs up. Maya's shoulders slumped slightly. Thomas could see the disappointment in her eyes as she prepared herself for not winning. David placed a gentle hand on her back. "It's okay, Star Girl," he whispered. "Your project was amazing." Ms. Rodriguez paused before announcing the 1st place winner, Building Anticipation. For outstanding scientific knowledge, exceptional presentation skills, and remarkable perseverance in the face of unexpected challenges, she began, the 1st place blue ribbon goes to Maya Johnson for her comprehensive solar system model. Maya sat frozen in her seat, her mouth open in surprise. The gymnasium erupted in applause. David nudged her gently. "They called your name, Maya!" "You won!" Maya stood up slowly, hardly believing what she'd heard. Thomas gave her an encouraging smile as she walked toward the podium. Ms. Rodriguez handed Maya the blue ribbon, which seemed enormous in her small hands. "Would you like to say a few words?" Ms. Rodriguez asked, lowering the microphone. Maya nodded and stepped forward. She looked out at the audience, her eyes finding her father and Thomas in the front row. "Thank you for the ribbon," Maya began, her voice small but clear. "I want to thank my dad for teaching me about the planets and helping me bend the wires for the orbits. And I want to thank Mr. Thomas for helping me when I was scared and for teaching me about gravity with fruit." She held up her blue ribbon. "And I learned that scientists don't have to know everything, but they should never give up when things get hard." The audience applauded again, louder this time. Several parents wiped tears from their eyes, moved by Maya's simple speech. David beamed with pride as his daughter returned to her seat, clutching her blue ribbon. "You did it," David said, hugging Maya tightly. "We did it," Maya corrected, looking at Thomas too. Ms. Rodriguez returned to the microphone. "Before we conclude our ceremony, Mr. Harrison has asked to say a few words." Thomas stood and walked to the podium. He had made several phone calls during the judging period, speaking in hushed tones to his foundation director. Now he looked out at the audience with purpose. "Good afternoon. I came to Lincoln Elementary today as an observer, but I'm leaving as something else, a believer in the extraordinary potential of young minds when given proper support and encouragement." Thomas glanced at Maya, who was listening carefully. "Today I witnessed something remarkable, a young scientist who faced disappointment and abandonment, yet found the courage to continue. This kind of determination deserves recognition beyond a blue ribbon." Thomas paused, making eye contact with David Johnson, who looked curious about where this was heading. "I am pleased to announce that Harrison Technologies is establishing the Bright Stars Scholarship Fund, with Maya Johnson as our first recipient." Gasps and murmurs spread through the gymnasium. Maya looked confused, not understanding what Thomas meant. David's hand covered his mouth in shock. This fund will cover Maya's educational expenses through college, including enrollment in advanced science programs, summer camps, and eventually university tuition. The audience broke into spontaneous applause. Parents stood up, clapping enthusiastically. Teachers wiped away tears. "Education should never be limited by a child's circumstances," Thomas continued, "or by the adults in their lives who fail them." He returned to his seat as the applause continued. Maya tugged on his sleeve. "What does that mean?" she whispered. "What's a scholarship?" Thomas smiled. "It means you can go to any school that will help you learn more about space and science. You won't have to worry about how much it costs." Maya's eyes widened. "Any school?" "Any school," Thomas confirmed. David leaned across Maya to speak to Thomas, his voice choked with emotion. "Mr. Harrison, I don't know what to say. I never expected." "Your daughter earned it," Thomas said simply. "I've never seen such potential combined with such determination." As the ceremony concluded, families began collecting their projects and preparing to leave. Maya held her blue ribbon in one hand and her father's hand in the other. Thomas walked with them to Maya's table to help pack up her solar system model. "Mr. Johnson?" Thomas said quietly while Maya carefully wrapped her planet models in tissue paper. "I'd like to speak with you about what happened today with your wife." David's expression darkened. "Maya told me Karen left her alone. I still can't believe it." "It's worse than that," Thomas said. "She told Maya this event was boring, and that a hair appointment was more important. She left a 7-year-old in tears minutes before a presentation." David's jaw tightened. "This isn't the first time Karen has disappointed Maya, but it's certainly the worst. I can't thank you enough for what you did today." "Maya is the one who deserves credit," Thomas insisted. "She approached me, a complete stranger, rather than giving up." They watched as Maya carefully packed Neptune into the box. Her blue ribbon was pinned proudly to her purple star dress. "The scholarship offer is genuine," Thomas continued. "I've already spoken with my foundation director. We'll set everything up next week." David shook his head in amazement. "I've been worried about Maya's education. My resident's salary doesn't leave much for private schools, even though she's clearly ready for more challenges than she gets here." "That's no longer a concern," Thomas assured him. "The Bright Stars Scholarship will cover everything she needs." As they finished packing Maya's project, Ms. Rodriguez approached with a photographer from the local newspaper. "The Oakland Tribune would like to take a photo of our first-place winner with her father and Mr. Harrison," she explained. "They're doing a story on the science fair and Mr. Harrison's scholarship announcement." Maya looked up at her father. "Is that okay, Dad?" "Of course," David nodded, straightening Maya's collar. They posed together beside Maya's solar system model, Maya in the middle holding her blue ribbon, David on one side and Thomas on the other. The camera flashed several times. "Maya," the photographer asked, "how does it feel to win first place and receive a special scholarship?" Maya thought for a moment. "It feels like when you learn something new that you didn't understand before. Exciting and happy." Thomas smiled at her perfect description. As the photographer thanked them and walked away, Thomas checked his watch. "I should be going," he said. "I have a dinner meeting at 7 o'clock." Maya looked disappointed. "Will I see you again?" "Definitely," Thomas assured her. "We need to discuss your scholarship and which programs you might be interested in joining." "Maybe you could come to dinner at our house sometime?" Maya suggested. "I could show you my telescope." David smiled at his daughter's straightforward invitation. "We'd be honored to have you, Mr. Harrison." "It's the least we can do." "Please call me Thomas," he said, handing David his business card. "This has my direct number. Call any time." As they walked toward the gymnasium exit, Maya suddenly stopped and turned to Thomas. "Thank you for not leaving me too," she said quietly. The simple statement hit Thomas with unexpected force. This child had experienced too many people walking away when she needed them. "You're welcome, Maya," he replied, his voice unusually soft. "Thank you for reminding me what's truly important." Thomas watched as Maya and her father walked to the parking lot, her blue ribbon visible even from a distance. He had come to Lincoln Elementary looking for schools to support. Instead, he had found something far more valuable, a reminder of why he started his company in the first place. Thomas walked to his car in the Lincoln Elementary parking lot, his mind still on Maya and her father. The events of the day had been unexpected in every way. What began as a simple observation of a school science fair had turned into something much more significant. As he reached for his car door, Thomas noticed Karen Matthews Johnson walking quickly toward the school entrance. She had clearly returned to see what happened after her abrupt departure. Their eyes met briefly before she looked away, her face flushed with embarrassment. Inside the gymnasium, Maya sat in the cafeteria area with her father, enjoying an ice cream sandwich the school provided for participants. Her blue ribbon was carefully pinned to her purple dress, and she touched it occasionally as if to confirm it was real. "I still can't believe you won first place," David said, watching his daughter with pride. Maya licked a bit of ice cream from her finger. "Mr. Thomas helped me explain gravity with fruit. That was when everyone really understood my project." David nodded, his expression becoming more serious. "Maya, I need to ask you exactly what happened with Karen today. Can you tell me everything?" Maya's smile faded slightly. She placed her ice cream sandwich on a napkin and straightened her back. "She kept checking her phone during setup," Maya explained. "Then she got a message and said she was leaving for a hair appointment. She said the science fair was boring." David's jaw tightened. "What did she say when you told her you needed her for the presentation?" "I asked her to stay. I told her I was scared to do it alone." Maya looked down at her hands. "She said I would be fine and to tell you she tried. Then she just walked away." David took a deep breath, clearly controlling his anger. "And that's when you asked Mr. Harrison for help?" Maya nodded. "I saw him standing alone. He looked nice." "You were very brave to ask a stranger for help," David said, gently touching her cheek. "But also very lucky. Not all strangers are safe people." "I know," Maya said, "but I didn't have anyone else." The school doors opened, and Karen walked into the cafeteria. Her hair was perfectly styled, and she wore large sunglasses despite being indoors. When she spotted David and Maya, she approached their table with hesitation. "There you are," she said with forced cheerfulness. "I came back as soon as my appointment finished." David stood up slowly. "Maya, please stay here and finish your ice cream. I need to speak with Karen privately." Maya watched as her father led Karen to a quiet corner of the cafeteria. Though they spoke in hushed voices, she could tell from their expressions that the conversation was serious. Karen gestured defensively while David's face remained stern. Outside in the parking lot, Thomas sat in his car but hadn't started the engine. He was on the phone with Vanessa Chen, his company's COO. "I need you to fast-track the paperwork for the Bright Stars Scholarship Fund," Thomas explained. "I want everything ready by Monday morning." "This is very sudden, Thomas," Vanessa replied. "The board hasn't approved a new scholarship program." "I'll handle the board," Thomas said firmly. "This is important. I met a child today who has extraordinary potential." "Is this about the little girl from the science fair?" "Rachel mentioned something about you helping a student with a presentation." Thomas looked toward the school building. "Yes. Her name is Maya Johnson, 7 years old with a remarkable understanding of astronomy. Her stepmother abandoned her minutes before her presentation, and instead of giving up, she found a solution." "That sounds like the kind of determination you always look for," Vanessa noted. "Exactly. I want this scholarship set up immediately, and I'd like you to find information about the best science-focused schools in Oakland." Inside the cafeteria, David returned to Maya's table. His expression was calm but resolute. "Where's Karen?" Maya asked, looking behind him. "She's going to her friend Tiffany's house tonight," David explained gently. "We need some time apart to think about things." Maya nodded, seeming unsurprised. "Is she mad that I told you what happened?" "No, sweetheart, she knows she made a bad choice." David sat down beside Maya. "But I want you to know something important. What Karen did was wrong. Adults are supposed to keep their promises, especially to children. Like you always come to my bedtime even when you're tired from the hospital," Maya said. "Yes, exactly like that." David smiled and touched her blue ribbon. "Now tell me more about this amazing scholarship Mr. Harrison announced. Do you understand what it means?" Maya's eyes brightened. "He said I can go to any school that teaches science, even expensive ones, and I can go to space camp in the summer." "That's right," David nodded. "It's an incredible opportunity. Mr. Harrison is being extremely generous." "Why did he pick me?" Maya asked, genuinely confused. David considered the question carefully. "I think he saw something special in you, Stargirl. The same things I see: your intelligence, your courage, and your determination." As they talked, Maya's science teacher, Mrs. Patel, approached their table. "I wanted to congratulate Maya again on her wonderful achievement," she said warmly, "and to let you know that Mr. Harrison left his contact information with me as well. He asked that we schedule a meeting next week to discuss Maya's educational options." "Thank you, Mrs. Patel," David replied. "We're still processing everything that's happened today." Mrs. Patel nodded understandingly. "It's been quite extraordinary. We've never had a student receive such an opportunity." She looked at Maya with genuine affection. "You've always been one of our brightest stars, Maya. Now you'll have the chance to shine even brighter." After Mrs. Patel left, David helped Maya gather her things. They carefully packed her solar system model into its box, making sure none of the planets were damaged. "Ready to go home, Stargirl?" David asked, lifting the box. "Yes. Can we stop for tacos? I'm hungry for real food after ice cream." David laughed. "Absolutely. First-place winners deserve tacos." As they walked to the parking lot, they were surprised to see Thomas still there, sitting in his car with the door open, talking on his phone. When he noticed them, he quickly ended his call and stepped out. "I thought you had left for your meeting," David said as they approached. "I was making some calls about Maya's scholarship," Thomas explained. "I wanted everything in motion before Monday." Maya stepped forward, holding her blue ribbon. "Thank you again, Mr. Thomas. Dad says your scholarship is a big deal." "It is a big deal," Thomas smiled. "But you earned it, Maya." David shifted the science project box in his arms. "We were just heading out for a victory dinner. Would you like to join us? It's just tacos, nothing fancy, but we'd be honored." Thomas checked his watch. His dinner with the Japanese investors wasn't for another 2 hours. "I'd love to," he said, surprising himself with how much he meant it. "Great!" Maya exclaimed. "You can sit next to me and I'll tell you about the stars I can see from my bedroom window." "I look forward to that," Thomas replied. "I'll follow your car." As they drove to Rosie's taco house, Thomas found himself reflecting on the strange turn his day had taken. This morning, his biggest concern had been impressing investors and closing a deal for a new battery factory. Now he was going to eat tacos with a hospital resident and a 7-year-old astronomy enthusiast who had somehow broken through his carefully constructed professional walls. At Rosie's, they found a quiet booth away from the crowded center of the restaurant. Maya insisted on sitting between her father and Thomas, her blue ribbon still proudly pinned to her dress. "Do you like tacos, Mr. Thomas?" Maya asked as they studied the menus. "I do," Thomas nodded, "though I don't eat them very often." "What do you usually eat?" Maya was curious about every aspect of her new friend's life. Thomas thought about the high-end restaurants and catered business meetings that made up most of his meals. "A lot of food in fancy restaurants where the portions are too small," he said honestly. David laughed. "Well, Rosie's portions are definitely not too small. The burrito could feed a small family. After they ordered chicken tacos for Maya, carnitas for David, and fish tacos for Thomas, Maya pulled out her phone. "Dad, can I show Mr. Thomas my star tracking app?" "Sure," David nodded. "Just for a few minutes." Maya opened an application that showed constellations. "I use this to find stars from my bedroom window," she explained, showing Thomas how to move the screen to match the night sky. "This is impressive," Thomas said, genuinely interested. "Do you have a favorite constellation?" "Cassiopeia," Maya answered immediately. "It looks like a W in the sky, and it's named after a queen who bragged too much and got in trouble for it." Thomas smiled. "You know your mythology as well as your astronomy." Their food arrived, interrupting the star discussion. As they ate, David told Thomas more about his work at Oakland General Hospital and his journey through medical residency as a single father. "Maya's mother died when she was 3, David explained quietly while Maya was distracted by the restaurant's small toy machine. "It's been just the 2 of us for most of her life. I married Karen last year thinking Maya needed a mother figure." "I understand," Thomas nodded. "It's natural to want that completeness for your family." David watched as Maya carefully selected a toy from the machine. "I made a mistake. Karen made it clear today where her priorities lie, and they're not with Maya." "What will you do now?" Thomas asked. "I'm not sure," David sighed. "But I know Maya deserves better." Maya returned to the table, proudly showing a small plastic telescope she'd gotten from the toy machine. "Look what I got!" "It's a sign that I should be an astronomer." Both men smiled at her enthusiasm. Thomas was struck by how quickly Maya bounced back from disappointment. Despite being abandoned by her stepmother just hours ago, here she was, happily sharing her passion for astronomy. "Maya," Thomas said, "I'm curious. What would you like to study first with your new scholarship? Is there a specific area of science that interests you most?" Maya considered the question seriously, taking a sip of her lemonade before answering. "Black holes. I want to understand how something can be so strong that even light can't escape from it." Thomas nodded, impressed by her answer. "That's a fascinating area of study." As their dinner continued, the 3 of them talked about stars, hospitals, and schools. With each passing minute, the unusual connection between them strengthened. Thomas couldn't remember the last time he'd enjoyed a meal this much. By the time they finished their tacos, Thomas had completely forgotten about his upcoming investor dinner until his phone buzzed with a reminder. "I'm afraid I need to leave for another meeting," Thomas said reluctantly. Maya looked disappointed. "Will we see you again soon?" "Very soon," Thomas promised. "We have a scholarship to plan." Thomas paid for their dinner despite David's protests and walked them to their car. The evening air was cool as the sun began to set over Oakland. Maya carefully carried her solar system model box while her father held her small plastic telescope toy. "Thank you for dinner," Maya said, looking up at Thomas. "The tacos were really good." "They certainly were," Thomas agreed. "Much better than the fancy dinner waiting for me." David extended his hand. "Thank you for everything today. Not just the scholarship, but for stepping in when Maya needed someone. I don't know how to repay that kind of kindness." "Seeing Maya succeed today is more than enough," Thomas replied, shaking David's hand firmly. "I'll have my assistant contact you on Monday about the scholarship details." Maya tugged on Thomas's sleeve. "Will you come see my real telescope sometime? It's not very big, but I can show you Jupiter's moons with it." "I would enjoy that very much," Thomas smiled. "Maybe next weekend?" "Yes!" Maya's face brightened. They said their final goodbyes, and Thomas watched as David helped Maya secure her science project in the back seat of their modest sedan. As they drove away, Maya waved enthusiastically through the window, her blue ribbon visible even in the fading light. Thomas got into his own car, a sleek black luxury vehicle that felt suddenly excessive after spending time with the Johnsons. He checked his watch, 6:45. just enough time to reach Maple Reserve for his dinner with the Japanese investors. As he drove toward downtown Oakland, Thomas found his thoughts continually returning to Maya and her father. His phone rang through the car's speaker system. "Thomas, where are you?" Vanessa Chen's voice filled the car. "The investors are already at the restaurant." "I'm on my way," Thomas replied. "I got caught up with the scholarship details." "You've been focused on this all day," Vanessa said. "I've never seen you this invested in a foundation project before." "This one is different," Thomas said simply. Meanwhile, David and Maya arrived at their small two-bedroom house in a modest Oakland neighborhood. The lights were off, indicating Karen hadn't returned home. Maya carried her blue ribbon carefully as they walked to the door. "Let's put your solar system model in a special place," David suggested as they entered the house. "Can we put it on the bookshelf in the living room?" Maya asked. "So everyone can see it?" "Perfect spot." David nodded. They carefully arranged the solar system model on the bookshelf, positioning it so the sun caught the light from the living room lamp. Maya stood back to admire her work, the blue ribbon now placed beside it. "Dad?" Maya said suddenly. "Is Karen coming back?" David sat on the couch and patted the spot next to him. Maya climbed up and settled beside him. "I don't know, Stargirl," he answered honestly. "Karen and I need to have some serious talks about what happened today." "She doesn't like me very much," Maya said matter-of-factly. "She pretends when you're around, but she doesn't." David put his arm around Maya's shoulders. "What makes you say that?" "She always calls me that child when she talks to her friends on the phone," Maya explained. "And she sighs a lot when you ask her to take me places." David's expression showed both sadness and concern. "I didn't know that." "I'm sorry, Maya." "It's okay," Maya shrugged. "I'm glad we met Mr. Thomas today. He really likes science like we do." "Yes, he does," David agreed, grateful for the change of subject. "And he saw how special you are." As they talked, headlights shone through the front window. Karen's white sports car pulled into the driveway. "Go get ready for bed, Stargirl," David said gently. "I need to talk to Karen." Maya nodded and hugged her father tightly before heading to her bedroom. She closed the door most of the way but left it open just enough to hear. Karen entered the house quietly, her high heels clicking on the hardwood floor. She stopped when she saw the solar system model prominently displayed on the bookshelf with the blue ribbon beside it. "So she won," Karen said flatly. "No thanks to you," David replied, his voice controlled but cold. "You abandoned our 7-year-old daughter at a school event, Karen." "I had an appointment," Karen started, but David cut her off. "A hair appointment," he said. "You left Maya alone and crying because you thought a hair appointment was more important than your stepdaughter's science fair." Karen crossed her arms defensively. It wasn't that dramatic. There were plenty of teachers there, and clearly she found someone to help her since she won. "Do you have any idea who helped her?" David asked. Karen looked away. "Some man in a suit. I saw them when I came back." "That was Thomas Harrison," David said, watching Karen's face. "The founder and CEO of Harrison Technologies, a billionaire who took time out of his day to help Maya when you couldn't be bothered." Karen's expression changed immediately. "Harrison Technologies? The solar panel company?" "Yes. And he was so impressed by Maya's courage and intelligence that he created a scholarship fund for her. It will pay for her education through college." Karen sat down slowly on the nearest chair. "Are you serious?" "Completely serious," David confirmed. "Maya made such an impression on him that he's investing in her future, all because she refused to give up when you walked out on her." In her bedroom, Maya was changing into her star-patterned pajamas, still listening to the conversation in the living room. She couldn't hear all the words, but she could tell her father was angry, and Karen was surprised. Maya walked to her window and looked up at the night sky. A few stars were visible despite the city lights. She thought about Thomas Harrison and how he had helped her explain gravity with fruit, how he had stayed beside her when she was nervous, how he had promised to see her telescope. In downtown Oakland, Thomas sat at a private table at Maple Reserve, one of the city's most expensive restaurants. 4 Japanese businessmen in expensive suits listened as Thomas explained the benefits of expanding Harrison Technologies' battery production to Tokyo. "Your energy storage technology is most impressive, Mr. Harrison," said Mr. Tanaka, the lead investor. "But you seem distracted tonight." Thomas paused, realizing he had been thinking about Maya's explanation of black holes rather than focusing on his presentation. "My apologies," Thomas said. "I had an unexpected experience today that's given me a new perspective." Mr. Tanaka looked interested. "What kind of experience?" Thomas considered how to explain. "I met a young scientist today who reminded me why I started this company in the first place. Not for profit, but to solve important problems." Back at the Johnson house, the conversation between David and Karen had escalated. "You can't just throw me out," Karen was saying. "This is my house too." "I'm not throwing you out," David replied firmly. "I'm telling you that you need to decide if you want to be a real part of this family. That means putting Maya's needs ahead of hair appointments and shopping trips." "She's not even my child," Karen snapped, then immediately looked regretful. David's expression hardened. "That's all I needed to hear." He walked to the hallway closet and pulled out a small suitcase. "You should stay at Tiffany's for a few more days while I consult with a lawyer." Karen's eyes widened. "A lawyer?" "You're overreacting, David. It was one science fair." "It's not just the science fair," David said quietly. "It's everything Maya just told me about how you talk about her when I'm not around. It's the way you've made her feel unwelcome in her own home." In her bedroom, Maya had stopped listening to the argument. Instead, she was writing in her space journal, a special notebook her father had given her to record her observations of the stars. Tonight, she wasn't writing about stars. She was writing about her day. "Today I won first place at the science fair," she wrote in careful letters. "My stepmom left me alone, but then I met Mr. Thomas. He helped me explain my project. He knows about gravity and black holes. He's making a scholarship so I can go to science school. Dad says it's a big opportunity. Mr. Thomas is coming to see my telescope next weekend." She closed her journal when she heard Karen's raised voice, followed by the sound of the front door slamming. A car engine started in the driveway. David knocked gently on Maya's door. "Can I come in, Stargirl?" "Yes," Maya called. David entered and sat on the edge of her bed. "Karen is going to stay at her friend's house for a while," he explained gently. "She and I need some time apart to think about things." Maya nodded. "Is it because she left me at the science fair?" "Partly," David said, choosing his words carefully. "But also because I realized that our family isn't working the way it should. A family should make everyone feel loved and important." "Do you think Mr. Thomas felt like part of our family at dinner?" Maya asked, changing the subject in her direct way. David smiled. "I think he did. He seemed to enjoy spending time with us." "I like him," Maya declared. "He doesn't talk to me like I'm a baby. He explains things properly." "I noticed that too," David agreed. "Now, time for sleep. You've had a very big day." As Maya settled under her star-covered blanket, David kissed her forehead. "I'm so proud of you, Stargirl. Not just for winning, but for being brave when things got hard. That's what scientists do," Maya said sleepily. "They solve problems." At Maple Reserve, Thomas was concluding his business dinner. The investors had agreed to move forward with the Tokyo expansion, impressed by Harrison Technologies' innovation despite Thomas's occasional distraction. As Thomas drove home to his penthouse apartment overlooking San Francisco Bay, he made a call through his car's system. "Vanessa? It's Thomas. I need you to clear my schedule for next Saturday afternoon. I'm visiting Maya Johnson to see her telescope." "The scholarship recipient?" Vanessa asked. "You're really personally involved in this one?" "I am," Thomas confirmed. "There's something special about this child. She sees the world with such clarity. I think I have as much to learn from her as she does from me." After ending the call, Thomas drove in silence, contemplating how a chance encounter at a school science fair had shifted his focus in unexpected ways. For years, his life had been consumed by business expansion and technological innovation. Now, suddenly, he was thinking about stars, planets, and a 7-year-old girl with remarkable courage. 1 year later, Maya Johnson walked confidently through the halls of Berkeley Preparatory Academy, her purple backpack filled with advanced science books. The prestigious private school in Oakland had welcomed her as their youngest scholarship student, and her teachers were constantly impressed by her questions and insights. It was Friday afternoon, and Maya hurried to the front entrance. Every third Friday of the month, Thomas Harrison visited her school to check on her progress and take her to lunch. These monthly meetings had become a highlight for both of them. Thomas stood in the lobby checking his watch. Though dressed in an expensive suit as always, he looked more relaxed than he had a year ago. When he spotted Maya coming down the hallway, a genuine smile spread across his face. "There she is," Thomas said as Maya approached. "How was school today?" "Amazing," Maya exclaimed. "In science lab, we programmed a robot to follow a path around the classroom. I made mine detect light sources and move toward them." Thomas nodded approvingly. "Sounds like you're putting those coding classes to good use." They walked together to Thomas's car, Maya chatting enthusiastically about her latest astronomy project. At 8 years old, she was already studying material meant for students twice her age. "Where's our lunch today?" Maya asked as she buckled her seatbelt. "I thought we'd try that new sandwich shop near your dad's hospital," Thomas suggested. "He might be able to join us during his break." "Perfect," Maya smiled. "I can show him my math test. I got all the questions right, even the bonus ones." As they drove through Oakland, Thomas asked about Maya's new school friends and activities. The Bright Stars Scholarship covered not just her tuition but also special programs, including weekend coding classes and a summer astronomy camp she would attend in June. At Molly's sandwich shop, David Johnson was already waiting at an outside table. He wore blue hospital scrubs under his jacket and looked tired but happy. When he saw Maya, his exhaustion seemed to fade instantly. "There's my star girl," David said, standing to hug his daughter. "How was school?" "Great! We programmed robots today," Maya said, pulling out her math test to show him. "And look at this." David examined the test, beaming with pride. "Perfect score. That's my girl." They ordered lunch, turkey sandwich for Maya, chicken salad for David, and a veggie wrap for Thomas. While they waited for their food, Thomas updated David on Maya's progress. Her science teacher says she's asking questions that even the 8th graders don't think to ask, Thomas reported. And the summer astronomy program at UC Berkeley is excited to have her, even though she's younger than their usual participants. David shook his head in amazement. "I still can't believe how much has changed in 1 year." He looked at Thomas. "All because you happened to be at that science fair." "I think Maya deserves most of the credit," Thomas replied. "She's the one doing all the hard work." Maya sipped her apple juice. "Dad, did you tell Mr. Thomas about your new job?" "Not yet," David smiled. "I was saving that news for today." Thomas looked interested. "New job?" "I've been offered a permanent position at Oakland Children's Hospital," David explained. "It means regular hours, better pay, and most importantly, more time with this one." He ruffled Maya's hair affectionately. "That's excellent news," Thomas said. "Congratulations." Their food arrived, and as they ate, Maya told them about the book she was reading on black holes. Her fascination with space had only grown stronger over the past year. "Mr. Reeves says I can do a special presentation for the whole school about black holes next month," Maya said between bites of her sandwich. "Will you both come?" "Wouldn't miss it," David assured her. "I'll be there," Thomas promised. "I might bring Vanessa too. She's been wanting to meet you." "Your business partner?" Maya asked. The one who helps you run the company? Thomas nodded, impressed that Maya remembered this detail. Yes, she's very interested in the other Bright Stars Scholarship students, too. The Bright Stars Scholarship Fund had expanded significantly over the past year. What began as a program for one child had grown to support 25 students across Oakland, with a focus on children from single-parent homes or challenging circumstances. How is the new house? Thomas asked David. 4 months ago, David and Maya had moved to a small house closer to Maya's school and David's new job. It's perfect for us, David replied. Maya's bedroom has a window that's perfect for her telescope. And no more memories of Karen. The divorce had been finalized 6 months earlier. Karen had moved to Los Angeles to pursue modeling opportunities, showing little interest in maintaining a relationship with Maya. I painted my room purple with silver stars, Maya added. And Dad built a special shelf for all my science books and my solar system model. That solar system model now occupied a special place in 2 locations, Maya's bedroom and the lobby of Harrison Technologies headquarters. Thomas had asked for a photograph of Maya's science fair project to display in the company's main entrance, alongside information about the Bright Stars Scholarship Fund. I have some news too, Thomas said as they finished their lunch. Harrison Technologies is launching a new educational program in 5 Oakland public schools. We're providing advanced science equipment and funding for after-school STEM programs. That's wonderful, David said. What inspired that? Thomas glanced at Maya. Let's just say I was reminded of how important it is to nurture scientific curiosity early, especially for kids who might not otherwise have the opportunity. Maya looked thoughtful. Like me before the scholarship? Exactly. Thomas nodded. Not every child is lucky enough to have a father who works as hard as yours to support their interests. And not every child is brave enough to approach a stranger when they need help. After lunch, they walked together to David's hospital. Before David returned to work, he gave Maya a hug. Thomas will drop you at Miss Wilson's house for your piano lesson, David reminded her. I'll pick you up at 5 o'clock. Okay, Dad, Maya nodded. Don't forget we're looking at the meteor shower tonight. I've got the hot chocolate ready to go, David assured her before heading inside. As Thomas and Maya walked back to his car, Maya suddenly asked, Are you happy you met me, Mr. Thomas? The question caught Thomas by surprise. Of course I am. Why do you ask? Maya shrugged. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if Karen didn't leave me at the science fair. We wouldn't have met. Thomas considered this as they reached his car. I think about that sometimes too. Before I met you, Maya, I was very focused on my company. Making money, expanding to new places, building bigger buildings. That sounds boring, Maya said honestly. Thomas laughed. It was, in many ways. I had forgotten why I started my company in the first place, to solve important problems and make the world better. You reminded me of that. Really? How? You showed me what really matters, Thomas explained as they got into the car. Helping people. Supporting the next generation of scientists and problem solvers, creating opportunities. Maya buckled her seatbelt. I'm glad Karen left then, even though it was scary at first. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best changes, Thomas said. They drove to Miss Wilson's house for Maya's piano lesson. Thomas had added music lessons to Maya's scholarship after learning about her interest in the relationship between music and mathematics. Will you come see the meteor shower tonight? Maya asked as they arrived. Dad's making hot chocolate, and I'm setting up my telescope on our back deck. I'd love to, Thomas replied. I'll bring those special astronomy cookies from the bakery you like. The ones with the star sprinkles? Those exact ones. Maya's face lit up with excitement. It's going to be the best meteor shower ever. As Maya hurried into her music lesson, Thomas sat in his car for a moment reflecting on the past year. His phone buzzed with messages from Vanessa about a potential new investor, but for once, He didn't feel any urgency to respond immediately. Instead, he thought about the unexpected partnership that had formed 1 year ago in a school gymnasium. He had gone to Lincoln Elementary looking for schools to support through his foundation. He hadn't expected to find a child who would change his perspective on what truly mattered. That evening, Thomas joined Maya and David on their back deck. As promised, he brought star-shaped cookies from Stellar Bakery. The three of them sat together under blankets, watching as streaks of light flashed across the night sky. "Make a wish on the next one," Maya instructed, her eyes fixed upward. Thomas watched as Maya's face glowed with wonder at each meteor. David looked on with fatherly pride. And Thomas Harrison, the billionaire CEO who once measured success only in profits and patents, realized he had found something far more valuable, a genuine human connection and a chance to make a difference in a child's life. As another meteor streaked overhead, Thomas didn't need to make a wish. He already had everything he needed right here. If you enjoyed today's video, I'm sure you'll love the next one. Don't waste time. Just click on the screen.